they need to either gain their objectives very, very fast, reach their objectives very, very fast until 2026, 2027, when their economy will basically collapse. Or they will need a time to regroup, to gain bigger advantage in terms of military. But I think that they prefer the first option, that they want to continue recruiting more personnel, and they want to continue attacking like this, with probably hope that their informational campaign that is waged at this moment will result in decreasing of military supplies to Ukraine from our allies.
Operator Starsky, thank you very much for joining us today. I wanted to start with what you're hearing is being made of the US sort of peace plans or negotiation plans in Ukraine.
First interesting thing is that we slowly realize, but it was kind of expected, that the US don't really have a clear strategy regarding the peace deal. Because what does the Trump administration speak about the peace plan? What is their goals? What kind of purpose and what kind of objectives they see to stop this war? They want the shooting to stop. Basically, that's it. And basically, the United States, Donald Trump, don't really have any other political goals, any other political objectives in finishing this war, rather than just to stop killing, as they say. And this is something that we can also see in different positions that different representatives have. Donald Trump and J.D. Vance, they have their vision. They make comments that completely contradict what, for example, Keith Kellogg says. So at this point, we can see that they don't really have neither communication agenda, communication strategy that will be common for all the representatives. And also, they don't really have a strategy, or the strategy that they have most probably will not work, because they also don't see any political goals, neither from continuing this war, of course, nor from stopping this war, because they don't really know what to gain from it. And at this very moment, for example, their colleagues from the European Union, they have clear vision. They have clear military goals from finishing this war. And the main goal, of course, is collective security and making sure that Russia will not continue their aggression against other European nations, which, by the way, is coming according to the German intelligence, according to the Danish intelligence, and so on. And another thing was the natural resource deal, which was not signed yesterday. Again, from what our media delivered to us, we can say that you don't really make deals like that, because President Zelensky had, again, it's according to our journalists who were there, President Zelensky didn't have much time to read it. So basically, he received the deal itself just about several hours before signing, and they pushed him to sign very, very quickly. Like, let's just sign and finish it, and everything will be fine. They read and analyzed the agreement that was proposed, offered by the United States, and basically they say that it is just another memorandum, like Budapest Memorandum, regulated generally by the state of New York, and we don't see how exactly does this memorandum protect Ukraine. So it was kind of interesting. I think that this deal can be changed, of course, because as the war continues and Russians slowly but steadily take more territory, of course, they have chance to acquire and control those natural resources that currently Ukraine has. So generally, I'm not saying that this is the plan, but of course there is a possibility that maybe in the future they will decide to trade those resources with Russia. What kind of prices, I have no idea, but this is again the possibility. So this is the picture as we see. A lot of different controversial statements were made. Again, Ukraine not being part of NATO, which wasn't surprising because Ukraine, generally speaking, and let's be honest, was never meant to be, never supposed to be a member of NATO. And since 2008, we worked really, really hard to become NATO member, and every single time we were told that maybe like in the next century, yeah, but not today, not tomorrow. It was like that in 2021, in 2022, it was like that in 2014. So nothing really changed here. And the difference is that administration of Biden made more promises, but generally with the same result, like tomorrow. As we say in the National Guard of Ukraine, it's either tomorrow or after a week. And with the Trump, we can hear pretty much the same. President Zelensky said that he will not remove the intention of our Ukraine, and he will not remove the efforts and not stop the efforts to continue reaching this objective of becoming a NATO member, regardless what the President Trump's opinion is. Another interesting thing was that Trump's administration wants to basically settle the war alone with Russians, which is not really what you do, because big part of the military supplies to Ukraine, they're still delivered by the European Union. This process is growing and accelerating, and the European partners also yesterday decided that they want to invest more into weapon production to protect themselves and help defend Ukraine. And this process will only grow, and we can see that European countries will consolidate. The reason they do that, again, is just my opinion, but apparently they still have like a vision that Ukraine will do whatever United States are telling Ukraine to do, which, by the way, correlates with this Russian propaganda that Ukraine is, like a puppet American state, which is clearly not the case. Otherwise, President Zelensky would sign that natural resource agreement yesterday easily, right? So eventually, they will, of course, come to the proper conclusions regarding their position, but they will probably make a lot of failed attempts. One of the failed attempts, again, I think it looked like that. Keith Kellogg asks Trump, "Sir, what do you want me to do?" And the Trump says, "I just want shooting to stop, like do something." And that is just their goal. Like they're not really interested what happens to Ukraine after that. Unlike Marco Rubio, by the way, because Marco Rubio, he has more sober position regarding the future of Ukraine, and making sure that the war will not break again. So Russians would not regroup and replace their losses in vehicles and personnel and try to attack again. So it's very interesting.
So is there a feeling that there are any elements of what the Americans have laid out in the last few days that could bring a lasting peace to Ukraine?
Let's say this way, the only thing that works so far is American supplies coming to Ukraine. That's it. Current peace deals, they are not ready, they will not work, because there is no strategic vision currently in the White House on what they want to achieve from finishing the war and how to make it, again, because I criticized Donald Trump during his election campaign when he was saying that he will finish the war in like several days. And that is when we already could understand that he doesn't have a strategy on how to finish the war. Stopping killing is like it's absolutely a good idea. I agree. I share this view that if you want to preserve human lives, of course you have to stop shooting. But you should also make sure that the shooting will not continue, and the only way to do that is to punish the aggressor and make this aggressor face responsibility, which we don't see. We hear things like Russia must be returned back into G8, which is G7, and at this point, Russia must become a G8 member again, and Ukraine must agree on different concessions. Why? Ukraine was the country that was invaded by criminals, by war criminals, and those war criminals committed a lot of crazy things in Ukraine. From mass graves that were found with civilians inside, to destroying Kakhovka Dam, to um, striking Chernobyl power plant yesterday. Why should Ukraine pay and satisfy the aggressor, creating another example for other aggressors that would look at that and see that the superpowers don't react? So maybe we should do the same, and everything will be fine.
The US Special Envoy to Ukraine, Keith Kellogg, laid out some further details later on yesterday, calling for further sanctions, and he outlined that Russia would have to make some concessions as part of any talks. Do you think there's anything there that suggests Kiev would be in a better place to negotiate back some of that land at a later date?
Yes, absolutely. But one very important thing is sanctions, because a lot of people underestimate how important they are. At this very point, you can read about the sanctions in detail on the EU main website. It's explained what exactly was sanctioned. That is the key electronic parts, high tech export to Russia, and things like that. Besides food and the necessary things that are required by civil population in Russia. Um, but at the same time, if we take a closer look at how much uh, finances Russia is losing every single day due to those sanctions, uh, how much they lost in frames of their frozen assets, and how much Russia is spending daily on the war, because at this very point, Russia is spending one third of its annual budget on continuing this war. And we can see that the effect is not that big. Their gains are quite slow on the Ukrainian territory. They lack vehicles. They invest more into producing vehicles and refurbishing the old vehicles from their storages. But we still see a lot of them bringing donkeys to the front lines and using Ladas and golf carts and motorcycles in the meat assaults. This is not effective. What they do right now, of course, increasing production of long-range drones like Shaheds, Garpias, and cruise and ballistic missiles, but their ground forces are not as effective as they really want. They can increase their army, they can recruit 100,000, 200,000 more personnel, but personnel cannot march to Kiev on foot because they lack vehicles. It's impossible. It will be the happiest day for the Ukrainian artilleryman. Um, at this point, the most effective thing that, in my opinion, the Western countries can do is completely isolate Russia economically. Russia will not survive. Russia relies big time on their allies like China, like North Korea, in terms of weaponry, but again, they pay for that. It's not like they receive it for free. If Russia is isolated economically, this is incredibly important. This is crucial to understand that they will collapse very, very soon.
And it's true to say as well, isn't it, that the battlefield is maybe not turning against Russia at this point, but it is in a very different situation now than it was a year ago.
Absolutely. Look at the gains that Russian troops acquire, the gains that they make every single day, and compare them to what they had, for example, 2022. There is two absolutely different things, because 2022 they would gain 1,000 kilometers easily on a daily basis. Nowadays it's between 10 and 20 square miles every single day. Yesterday they lost 1,700 men in order to acquire several square kilometers of the territory. So this is their potential. What the world's second largest army can do in Ukraine currently is basically fertilize huge territories as big as 10 kilometers with the bodies of their soldiers, and only gain as much. And their potential still declines because their storages deplete. Again, according to different experts that analyze their dynamics of their losses, they say that the critical point for Russia will be around 2026, when they will reach critical points in terms of artillery and vehicles, because their stockpiles are depleting, and in terms of finances, when the expenses to continue this war will reach more than 50% of their annual budget, annual GDP. So that is the situation. They understand one thing. They understand that they need to either gain their objectives very, very fast, reach their objectives very, very fast until 2026, 2027, when their economy will basically collapse. Or they will need a time to regroup, to gain bigger advantage in terms of military. But I think that they prefer the first option, that they want to continue recruiting more personnel. They calculated how much personnel they need they can lose every day, because this number correlates with the number of personnel that they recruit on a monthly basis. And they want to continue attacking like this, with probably hope that their informational campaign that is waged at this moment will result in decreasing of military supplies to Ukraine from our allies.
And President Zelensky has said that he wants to meet with Trump ahead of potential talks with Putin in Saudi Arabia. Is there still room to convince Trump to move on some of those key issues and see the position that Ukraine is in?
We have a saying that, there's two types of people. The first type is learning on the mistakes of themselves, the mistakes made by those people. Second type learns on the mistakes made by others. So unfortunately, currently we can see that regarding the Trump administration, that is the first case. President Zelensky, by the way, confirmed that he was not invited to Saudi Arabia at all. Ukrainian representatives that were there yesterday in Munich, they said that nobody ever invited them to this talks. So maybe it will be done like in the nearest future. But so far, yes, they showed some pictures with Ukrainian flags. No, Ukraine was not invited yet. But I'm still optimistic, yes, and I think that sooner or later the Trump administration will make right decisions and come to the proper conclusion that they need collective security, and they need to fight against the Russian terrorism. At this very point, I can see that there is no such understanding, that there is absolutely no clear vision on how to do this. One of the biggest proves that this is so, because Russian propaganda and Russian disinformation that is being countered in the European Union big time, by the way. In the United States, there's an absolutely different picture because several days ago I noticed another fresh video made by Team Pool on a YouTube, and everything is fine. The video is sponsored, of course. I'm not sure what's the price now was negotiated with Russia today, but we still see that whatever they achieved previously by sanctioning and exposing this scheme that allowed Russia to install their content directly from the Russian studio in Moscow into American brains, we can see that this process was launched again and it works. So we were observing so far.
And in a quite left field speech, Vice President J.D. Vance has said he was more worried about the threat to free speech in Europe than the threat of Russia. I mean, you've worked for some time now at the Propaganda Study Institute. Um, would you say that was the success there of Russian propaganda to play down the threat that Europe faces from the Kremlin?
That was one of their objectives, because they wanted to introduce Russia as this absolutely beautiful place where all kinds of conservative people from around the world can find their home. Right? If you are Russian in your soul, which means that you are basically a person who cherishes things like stealing toilets, invading other countries, and stuff, then you can find your home on the Russian territory, marry a white Russian woman with blue eyes, and make sure to preserve your color, your heritage, your genetics. It's very, very important. At the same time, there was actually an attack made on the European democracy, which was kind of interesting. Here in Germany, for example, I can see that everybody has free speech, has opportunity to speak. Currently, there's elections in Germany, and I can see that everybody has a platform to speak, including their communists, including their AfD party that was known for harboring Russian spies, Chinese spies, and probably somebody else we haven't discovered yet. They can be seen in prime time, which, by the way, Mr. Pistorius also talked about. Like, no, it's not the case. In Europe, we have very clear vision on what the freedom of speech is, and we preserve this right for everybody to speak. But there is a very, very big difference between the free speech and between informational operations, for example, like in case with the Team Pool, because Team Pool was secretly paid by Russians and provided by the content from the Russian studio, that the content that was written and created and compiled by Russian editors, Russian speaking people, that basically targeted American audience, making Team Pool say things like Ukraine is the greatest threat for the United States and for the rest of the world. We should apologize to Russian people because we are such bad people. We are angry at them for attacking like some kind of Eastern European country we don't care about. It was interesting. Again, another interesting thing about his speech was that he didn't really talk about Ukraine at all. Like there were several mentions, but generally this very security summit, it was created with the biggest purpose of like finding solution, finding some kind of common ground of discussion on how to act together to defend the European and Western democracy in general, Western countries, and how to combat the Russian terrorism, how to help Ukraine protect itself, because Ukraine is currently the country that is facing this threat on the battlefield. And instead of that, we've heard a lot of strange statements that made absolutely no sense to people sitting there, because they were absolutely not related to the main topic, right? That is again another confirmation that they don't really have the strategy. It's temporary. Again, I'm optimistic. I think that it's temporarily, and sooner or later they will come to the proper conclusion. But at this time, I don't see that they have a strategy or agenda that may work.
Operator Sarsky, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you so much.